There is a specific kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got. It shows up somewhere around mid-morning when you have technically done things, responded to messages, picked an outfit, decided what to eat, figured out which route to take, and yet you feel like you have already used something up before the real work has even started. Most people call this a slow morning. Some blame their coffee. Others assume they're just not a morning person. But what if none of those explanations are actually correct? What is happening in those early hours is not about energy in the way most people think about it. It is about something quieter. And once you understand it, you will start noticing it everywhere. Not just in your mornings, but throughout the entire structure of your day. The human brain does not treat all decisions equally. Research in cognitive psychology consistently shows that the act of making a choice, regardless of how small it is, draws on a limited pool of mental resources. This is not a metaphor. The mental effort required to evaluate options, compare them, and commit to one is a real cognitive process that uses up the same attentional capacity you need for everything else. Choosing what to eat for breakfast and choosing how to respond to a complicated work email are obviously not the same kind of choice, but they share the same underlying cognitive system. They both cost something. The reason this matters is that most people do not design their mornings with this in mind. They move through the first hour of their day, making one small choice after another, often without realizing it. What to wear, whether to check their phone immediately or wait, which app to open first, what to respond to and in what order, whether to have coffee now or later. These are not dramatic decisions. No one would describe them as stressful, but they are decisions and they accumulate. Cognitive scientists describe this pattern using the concept of decision fatigue. The idea is that the quality and ease of decision-making declines after a sustained period of making choices. What is important to understand is that fatigue in this context does not mean feeling tired in the usual sense. It means that the threshold for mental effort quietly rises. Tasks that would normally feel manageable start to require more deliberate effort. The brain begins to look for shortcuts, default responses, or in some cases, avoidance. This is not a character flaw. It is a structural feature of how the human cognitive system works. Think about a typical desk worker on a Tuesday morning. Before they even open their work laptop, they have already navigated a series of small forks in the road. The alarm goes off and they decide whether to get up immediately or rest for a few more minutes. They walk into the kitchen and decide between 2 or 3 options for breakfast. They glance at their phone and decide which notifications deserve attention and which can wait. They sit down and decide where to start, which tab to open, which message to address first. Each of these moments involves evaluation. Each one involves a small act of commitment to one path over another. By the time they are sitting at their desk and facing the first genuinely complex problem of the day, something has already shifted. The sharpness that was available when they woke up is slightly less accessible. Not dramatically, not in a way they would easily name, but measurably different from what it could have been. Research into attention and cognitive load supports this observation. Studies consistently show that people perform more carefully considered, thoughtful work earlier in their day, when the early hours contain fewer demands on their decision-making capacity. The brain is not equally available to all tasks at all times, and the pattern of demands placed on it before the work begins has a direct effect on the quality of the work itself. The uncomfortable part of this is not that people are doing anything wrong. The uncomfortable part is that the design of modern life does not account for this at all. Smartphones serve up a stream of choices from the moment they are picked up. Inboxes require triage. Social feeds present endless small evaluations about what to engage with and what to ignore. These systems are built to absorb attention, not to preserve it, and they tend to get accessed first before the day has properly begun. The effect is not dramatic enough to feel like damage. That is what makes it easy to overlook. A person does not usually think, I spent too much time deciding which shirt to wear, and that is why I could not concentrate at 11. The connection is invisible because the cost of each individual decision is small. It is only the accumulation that matters. There is also a secondary effect worth understanding. When cognitive resources are depleted, people tend to default to familiar patterns. Research in behavioral science shows that under conditions of mental load, individuals are more likely to choose the easiest available option rather than the most considered one. This means that as the day progresses and decision fatigue accumulates, people are less likely to engage with difficult problems, more likely to procrastinate on tasks that require deep thought, and more likely to make choices based on habit or convenience rather than intention. This is not weakness. It is a conserved response. The brain is protecting itself by reducing output when resources are running low. What this does not mean is that every morning needs to be perfectly optimized, or that small decisions are inherently bad, or that the solution is to eliminate all morning choices. That interpretation misses the point. Human beings make thousands of decisions every day and function perfectly well most of the time. The research here is not an argument for rigid control over morning routines. It is simply an explanation for a pattern that most people experience but rarely examine. It also does not mean that later in the day is useless, or that one slow morning is meaningful in any significant way. Cognitive resources are not permanently lost. Sleep restores them. Rest between tasks partially restores them. Individual variation plays a role. Some people are more sensitive to decision fatigue than others. Context matters too. What the research points to is something more subtle. It is the observation that the invisible architecture of a morning, the sequence of small demands placed on the mind before the major work begins, shapes the conditions in which that major work happens. Not perfectly, not catastrophically, but consistently and quietly. Most people move through this without noticing. They feel the mid-morning friction and interpret it as something personal, a weakness in their focus, a problem with their discipline, a sign that they are not built for the work they are trying to do. The actual explanation is less personal and more structural. The brain is doing exactly what it is designed to do. It is just doing it in a context that asks more of it than most people realize. That recognition, simply seeing the pattern clearly, is often more useful than any adjustment a person could make. Understanding what is actually happening is different from knowing what to do about it, and sometimes the understanding is enough.